It's Thursday, September 14th, 2023.
And this is a tank talk with Jeremy Wright. What we're looking at is my Central American 55 gallon. It's a standard display tank, but it has a hang-on back on the front of this tank, which is just outright unsightly, makes it terrible to share a video. But I'm trying to keep this HOB filter alive and going. It belongs on a different tank, but that tank's not set up right now. And to keep that stuff alive, it's just hanging on the front of the tank that's big enough to support it. So the 55 is rather unsightly in that regard. Otherwise, it would be filtered by this, which is just it's probably the bigger size aquarium co-op sponge filter. As far as sponge filters go, these are the only ones that I have ever been satisfied with. Others, I mean, they move some bubbles. They don't move much water. These, the foam on them is actually porous enough that it's a large enough expansion of the density of the sponge filter, the foam sponge, that they don't get clogged up very fast. Let's actually get a closer look at this. So I don't clean this one. My snails and fish clean this one. As I said, it's the larger one, so the pores, the sponge, it's lower density. The bubbles inside of the styrofoam foam, it's not as dense. So great size for medium, large aquariums. Sorry for the reflection behind me. It is definitely daytime, and there's just a sliver of light poking in. So let's talk about this tank. Central America. Ish. I mean, it's got a pothos plant in there. I think they might be Asian. It has Cabamba green, Cabamba red, Bacopa monieri, Bacopa caroliniana. And actually, I haven't confirmed that both of the Bacopas came back. So this was a tank that from December of last year until July of this year was staying, maybe June of this year was staying at a friend of mine's house. Thank you, Sandy. She was a ways away, and she helped the tank survive while it wasn't at my house while I was doing renovations and such. Came back to me, and I had it really heavily shaded at first. Up here, they're just two 4-foot shop lamps plus a whatever that is. You know, it's like a fluorescent converted to LED plus a fluorescent. And they do different things, but essentially it's kind of a soft lights on, lights off. There was water lettuce, pistia, frog bit, linobium, maybe 2 species of frog bit. There was like a tiger striped one, and then there's this like giant frog bit thing that one probably flipped over. It's kind of growing in a knot, but it's an interesting little flipped over thing that kind of looks like something that would be growing in a pond. It's also got duckweed up here, so not a problem. These lights were actually designed to penetrate through a layer of duckweed on a 55. That's why I had started using 2 of them at a time. I guess those are the only floaters in here. So I tried to clear, well, there's some pistia over here. Anyway, tried to take most of that stuff outside and started separating some gups. There was one red gup in here. They're supposed to be kind of an orange. We're going for, where's an example? That guy back there. You see the one center screen? Uh-oh. Magic. There was a fish, then there wasn't a fish. So the one that we saw previously, who's now hanging out up at the very top behind a ball of Bacopa. Anyway, they were some award-winning gups that were originally bred here, trying to get that orange on the yellows. So anyway, they were pretty cool. I guess we'll do that again. We now have black knight rams in here also. They are trying to breed, but there's an Ancistrus female, which is a bristlenose catfish. She gets out here in the evening. Nothing that's an egg layer is going to be able to successfully do that without being able to fight off a larger, 4-inch catfish. I don't know if we will see her today. But down in the lower reaches, there are one of my favorite aquarium plants, just for weird little stuff, micro stuff. This is Phoenix moss, Physidens fontanus. It grows quite slowly. It needs a lot of light. And as I had started to tell you, this tank went for a period with lower light. So right now it's kind of bright compared to how it was even a week or two ago. It was much more shaded than this because it had a lot more floating plants. And the types of floating plants really impact what happens. So the thinnest, smallest, most transparent for light penetrating down from above, they block light, right? So the ones that block the least light, pretty easy to guess. I mean, it's the little stuff, duckweed. From there, I would say like red root floaters aren't that bad. Salvinia, even though it's a smaller plant, blocks quite a bit of light. Wisteria, water lettuce, blocks a lot of light because it's a very dense plant. It's going to occupy more, like when that stuff grows up, the rosettes of Pistia water lettuce can be like 6-7 inches across. The ones that grow outside in pond and sunlight, they're like huge. And then they're connected to babies that get huge. And I mean, once you've got a mat of that stuff growing, it blocks a ton of light. Frogbit's not quite like that. It can blocks a good little bit of light, but this is essentially a completely covered tank. And it's, it might have a couple of spots. I'll try to clean it out. However, it's this bright down here. And that's okay. That's a pretty decent brightness. This tank runs pretty lean. While I'm sure we could find some algae in here, we might be hard pressed. There's some fuzz, some green fuzz that I find every once in a while in the bottom. Is that it? That's that green fuzz, I think. Yeah. So that's some out. Oh no. I was trying to zoom out and I colored out. Ha! Okay, whatever. So, yeah, that was an interesting little shift. Apologies for that. We're not going to edit it out. We're just going to keep rolling. No editing on this channel. We just shoot stuff, and if it's not worth watching, it's not worth watching. And if it is, it is. So thanks for watching, guys. So big mass of guppy grass in the back. Excuse me. A Kabamba red grown under shade, and then Kabamba green was toward the front. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Some coon tailors, some bacopa right there. What else is down in here? This looks like another little bit of bacopa that was coming up, but it's only been a couple of weeks since this tank was unshaded and light has been allowed to penetrate. So the Physidens, fontanus, the moss that we looked at, this stuff is going to grow much better. And look at that. That's a little bit of Java moss that got in here. I've been picking that out because it's a Central American tank, right? Not needs the Java moss. Trying to avoid some of the Asian plants, which Pistia, African plant, it came out. Some of the stuff that's in the hang-on back up there is not Central American stuff, but again, this thing is not really part of this tank. It's just up there staying alive while the other tank's down. And that's cool, whatever. So it was kind of an old world tank that belongs to like Central Asia or something. I don't know what it's going to be next. I actually need to start a biotope for my area again. But little stuff. That's it's Creeping Jenny. I'm trying to remember the Latin name. Lysimachia numeralis. I don't know why that was hard. Some pearl weed type stuff I found in my backyard. So, we'll see what that does. It was growing kind of half emergent, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So I put it in a bucket, and then it filled up the bucket. And then I kind of divided it off. It was growing outside, so I took the little fresh bits that didn't have any algae and stuff on them from living outside. There's kind of a mass of it back there in the back too, but that's you know, the local pearlweedy thing. So I'll try and get a positive ID on that. There's also Ancistrus elidea type stuff in here. There's grass. Not a lot of grass right now. This tank used to be really full of grass. So these are dwarf chainswords, or are they? No, these are just little Sagittaria grasses, I do believe. And they're lighter in color because they're maybe out here toward the glass. I don't know. So that's Sagittaria grass. Or, no, those might be dwarf chainswords. Why are they so short? That's like, it's pretty short. So the Sagittaria is probably the grasses in the back. Again, this tank didn't live here for the most of this year. From the beginning of this year until summer, it didn't live at my house. So it changed, and I'm just really glad I got it back. But some of the things that are in it, I mean, they're just all in different places. The tank was growing rapidly, then it was kind of shaded. And when I transported it, I had to drop the water level down a lot. So it's a soft water tank right now. It doesn't have real high GH, KH. It doesn't have very high TDS. It has very low nitrates and phosphates. And anyway, it's now to the point where I think I'm trying to start feeding the fish a good little bit more. Sorry for that wonky color change. Like, I don't know what I did with the buttons. I tried to fix it, but I didn't fix it. So, anyway, let's see if an attempt at this color correction. That looks a little more like life, but it's still not right. I'm looking at the tank and then looking at the image on the screen. I'm like, that's not the same, really. So imagine that just a little more green, even the background, more green, limey. So what's up with this tank? Let's talk about the substrate. For those of you who've never seen this or heard me talk about this before, this is a soil under sand tank. It was started in recent years. It used to be my North America tank. So I had this area here, which was like a cabinet. I'm gonna zoom out. Built-in shelves. I actually had to rebuild them from a disaster this year, but they were identical as far as this stuff. But there was a tank there, 55-gallon tank, and up there, another 55-gallon tank. So we had South America, North America, and then I had tank D over there, tank J over there, which were both 20-gallon tall. I might get another 20-gallon to put in that space just because it looks off, and I liked it as such. But I kind of like having the open space up there more than having a tank. And it's hard to service a big tank that's near your ceiling. It's just hard when you got to get your elbows down into the bottom, but you already have to reach up within like 6 inches of the ceiling or 12 inches of the ceiling just to put your arm over it's not fun. This is a more manageable thing. Same size, 55-gallon tank just on the bottom, but this time Central America, North America is on the bottom instead of the South America Amazonian basin tank on the bottom. Gosh, sorry for that reflection of the doorway there. Anyways, that's a lot about the plants and the tank. I mentioned like the pothos and stuff. That's not related to this tank, really. It's just sitting there right now to stay alive. But one thing about the tank, as I mentioned, it's got really soft water. Where it really, the tap water here in Little Rock only has like 12 to 17 ppm total dissolved solids. So when I moved it home and had to do like a 90% water change to keep stuff for the travel, driving with this tank sloshing in the back of an SUV, not fun. So you bring the water level down. After that big water change, this tank has just been crispy clear. Doesn't even hardly have a lake smell to it, which is kind of unusual. It means it's just really, really clean and clear. given that it's a couple days from the weekend, I'll get my next Total Dissolve Solid read, but it's probably in the 80s right now. Nitrates were like 0, nitrates 0, phosphates nearly 0. So literally, this tank is only being fed and fertilized by the fish food I'm putting in. I mix the fish foods. I've got 4 or 5 different types I use pretty regularly. Plus, I catch live food from outside and feed the tank. I did stuff 1 root tab fertilizer down under this guy. So, melon sword, flame sword, not melon. Cross, Spartiri, and something else I can't remember right now. Anyway, when I got the tank back, the flame sword, just wasn't doing well. So I'm giving it more light. I cheated and gave it a fertilizer tab. I want to see that thing thrive, and I'm going to see it thrive once it's back in production mode. It needs some light to save it. Oh, but you know what? It's putting out great new foliage. Hold on. Center screen, the one that looks kind of dark. The dark, anyway. It's just got a strange color. That leaf there clearly kind of dead, but the color of the kind of dead spot isn't too different than the color of the really doing great for this particular plant. It's just kind of weird. It's doing better than I thought it is. Never mind. Anyway, the plants still just aren't banging, thriving in here. So they're only getting the fertilizer from food, right? So this is really an exercise in aquaponics. It's an exercise in organics, organic gardening. It's an exercise in aquatics and freshwater planted aquariums. It's going to be really hard to build a food web and true nutrient chain back up in a tank like this with such an established fish population. They'll mow through just about any sort of invertebrates that get placed in here. Even if they were larger invertebrates, their offspring would just immediately get mowed through. So we have to either divide it off with a refugarium to take advantage of that and have like a refugarium sump, which I could put down low or something. But not going to do that. This is an enclosed cabinet. Years past, there was actually a hole in the back of the wall on this side where a similarly sized hang-on back could rest, like back in there. But I closed that off when I redid this room earlier this year, and then immediately put a hang-on back up in here. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have closed that space, but I did. So now the thing's just up there hanging out, but it blocks that purple plant light. We can look at it like this and not get that. I think I've yammered enough about this tank for a bit. Got some family stuff going on right now. We had a tragedy, so I probably won't be as active as I have been. Who knows? But I expect to be really busy and people to be, sharing some tears and hugs and stuff. But signing off for now. If you like this kind of thing, I'd appreciate likes, subscribes, shares. I will definitely show other tanks. Thanks for watching another episode of Tank Talks.